Morning, campers, and I wanted to do an update on what's happening with the legal positions with the newspapers. I am involved in it, and so I wanted to monitor it and perhaps do some vlogs when it's going on, once I get my camera sorted out. So at the moment, the Daily Mail is waiting to hear if the trial will go ahead, and that is going to be announced by Judge Nick Lynn, and he has been on holiday for a long time, and he's coming back in the second week of October and will make his decision about whether the court case involving Doreen Lawrence, Elton John, Prince Harry, who else? Liz Hurley will go ahead against the Daily Mail. So it's more or less the lawyers led by the paralegals, Graham Johnson, Evan Harris, I can't remember that guy's name. They're the paralegals, and they are kind of leading the lawyers into the charge against the Mail. And so it will be quite interesting. Now, I've spoken a lot to Gavin Burrows. He is currently suing Graham Johnson for reputational damage. He's quoted, I think, 3 million. He is a private investigator that earns a lot a year. He works for the top lawyers. He has homes all over the world. So he's a wealthy individual. So he can afford to take this legal action against Johnson and also the other people involved. I think Evan Harris and this other character. It will be quite interesting if this trial does go ahead. I believe I'll be called as a witness too. I am really angry about what's gone on with me and these people. I've been falsely accused of ringing Sienna Miller's GP to find out if she was pregnant, something that I would have to be off my rocker to do. You get these people that are hugely narcissistic. I don't think I'm wrong in saying actors and actresses can be narcissistic. And, you know, just to see Sienna Miller, you can tell she's pretty probably in that, in that ballpark. And you don't go anywhere near these people as a private investor. You don't go anywhere near them, least of all as somebody working for the press. That I would do such a thing, and to spread it around is just single-handedly massively hurt my reputation. What happens, lots of private investigators don't work for the press. Now, the reason why they don't work for the press, as I was told by Barry Trigwell back in the 80s, late 80s, that we don't work for the press, it's because what they do with what we dig up for them. So basically, the press would hire a private investigator because, they're not so good at investigating, and they would stand up a story for them. But what would happen, the person the story was about is able to approach the press and say, how did you find that out? And then the press, what they do, they throw forward the private investigator. And that is why private investigators didn't work for the press. When I made the decision I wanted to work for the press, I made the decision that I would go in it with eyes wide open, knowing that they had also hired private investigators, used them for 3 or 4 years, and then handed a file to the police. Now, I'm quite able to do anything any private investigator will do, apart from phone hacking. That was something completely new brought in by John Boyle that he had picked up from God knows where. But anything else besides that, I'm quite able to do. Nothing to do with hacking. I don't believe that's a private investigator's field. I don't, that. And it's actually not hacking. These PIs that do it, it's not actually real proper hacking. So that takes a brain. So it's just, a petty little trick. So when I worked for the press, I kept this in mind, also having been turned over by the press myself, and on the basis of a lie, and having my character completely ruined far more than the people that are wheeled out as being life ruined by the press. Literally, they said that I was the daughter of a serial killer, and it completely turned my life around. It affected my marriage to be. It affected my life. It affected my self-esteem. It affected that I moved forward and ended up having a relationship with that particular serial killer, and it destroyed me completely, I would say. The only reason I went to work for the press is because they knew that it wasn't true, so I kind of took refuge in a place where they all knew it was a joke and I had been turned over. So working there was something of a respite for me, and I vowed A, not to hurt people, B, to never ever do anything even remotely illegal, because they were blackmailers. They would ask you to do something that was illegal and then keep a file on you and say, oh, do you know what, I've got this on you, I've got that on you, you have to go and do this other really dark, dirty thing. And even Greg Miskey, who I had a personal relationship, even he threatened me one time when I walked into the pub and told him I was going to do a shift because I wanted to be a journalist. That's why I entered that world. Threatened me. And I looked at him in the eye and I thought, oh, all that time you've been believing that I've, been doing things that I shouldn't be doing, but actually I haven't. There's an easy way if somebody asks you to find out something, to go around houses, to do things that a normal plod would do, to do things that a normal journalist would do. Now, Graham Johnson doesn't believe this, and he doesn't believe it because it doesn't suit him to believe it. And I have been completely and utterly smeared. That is, even from the point of coming forward and helping Hacked Off, meeting with Evan Harris, meeting how many times with Graham Johnson. This is all on tape. I was told years ago in 2016, keep a record of it, keep it on tape. It's all on tape. Some of it is on camera. And no, it's not stored at my house, boys. Please don't try and do another burglary on me. So this is all a matter of record that I helped. It's all a matter of record that I came forward to the BBC and let myself be filmed. They ended up abusing me because they wanted me to have done this phone call. Now, I didn't believe the phone call had taken place. I thought, well, there was no such phone call. And then I read an article about Sienna Miller talking about this phone call. I mean, you'd have to be a very, very stupid GP, but apparently there is one out there. Now, I don't know why this man hasn't been struck off. I'm in the middle of trying to find out who that person actually is to make a complaint to the GMC, because if he hadn't have been a completely brain-dead idiot, then I wouldn't have been smeared. But apparently the call happened. Now, I didn't know this, or I would have fought back the BBC better than I did. I was only phoned up after the baby was terminated. That was the first thing I called it. And there's plenty of witnesses about that. And so this call to her GP, I didn't think it had occurred. Who'd be so stupid? But I read Miller talking about it and I thought, well, she can't be saying that at the risk of, making it up and then being found out. But I still thought, because the BBC, you did it, confess. And this moron from the BBC would ring me using a withheld number and start shouting at me down the phone. I'd ruined her life. And I had a breakdown. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I ended up around my mother's house, who's long dead. And I ended up, banging on the walls. And it was pretty horrible. I put it out there on YouTube, and I still have the tape of what happened to me. It was really, really nasty, especially as I'd given 2-3 hour interviews with them. And they wanted me to have made this call. And I, honest to God, I swear on my son's life, I haven't. I swear on that I'd be struck down dead right now if I wouldn't be so retarded as to do something like that. And so I assumed that there was no such call for a long time. And then I emailed a Sun editor that I used to know back in the day very, very well. And over another issue, and actually it was a little bit of a rude email, but it was completely over another issue. They're not involved in any of this. And they rang me up and said, oh, how are you? You know, great to hear from you. You know, how are you faring? Oh, wasn't it a shame you got fingered for that Sienna Miller call when everybody knew it was Susie doing it for Lloyd of TDI? And I remember I was in the bath at the time and my blood ran cold. I literally couldn't speak. And I literally couldn't speak. And when I eventually got my ability to speak back, I said, so there was a call. And they laughed and found it, you know, pretty hilarious. I dashed out of the bath, got them to repeat it for the tape. Then I made further inquiries and I got to speaking to another PI. And they confirmed it. They didn't want to go on record. They didn't want to go against Lloyd, but they told me, apparently, Graham Johnson, now I might have got that wrong, I have to check, either Graham Johnson or Rebecca Brooks had said to this guy, he's a West Indian guy, he now lives out in America, they said, Lloyd, don't worry, I'll keep you out of all this. Now, I've been smeared all over the place as doing that, and it's such a stupid thing to do. You're bound to get caught for it in some way, shape, and sorry, I'm just beyond angry. I'm really beyond angry, actually. I'm really beyond angry about it. And I've also been smeared for another similar thing as regards another woman, something that I would never do in a million years. Now, journalists and many PIs were making these silly little calls that failed. They would fail. I believe in the Miller case it didn't. Bizarrely, it must have been a really stupid individual that took the call, but mostly they failed. Now, these journalists were doing, and other PIs were doing these ridiculous calls. I wasn't doing calls like that because it's called data thieving, and data thieving holds a custodial of 10 years. Now, some PIs go into that and they sort of become a bit like, oh gosh, who is that guy? Kenny Noy. They're a bit like fencers with jewellery. It's a criminal field, but they go into it, they have police contacts, they get tipped off when they're going to be raided, and there's a massive amount of money in it. Massive. Now, John Boyle is one of those people. And when he was going to be raided, he got tipped off by one of his friends and changed all his hard drives. And he lives in a £10 million mansion. Any of these other agencies that have gone into it, they are really, really well-to-do, massively well-to-do. Now, I steered well clear away from it. Why? Because I'm a little bit silly when it comes to security and things like that. And also being a Catholic, brought up a Catholic, I thought, well, hang on, that's a criminal way to be. And if you earn money through criminality, then you're not going to get blessings. And I just didn't want to do that. I just thought, nope, wrong. And went into what's known as Humint and Ossint, which is where, and there were other people in it, sort of, there's an ex-MI5 guy I work with, and he he was very honest too, and he said, all these criminals that, and it's not right. And I agreed with him. I thought, yeah, it's not right. And there were decent PIs out there not doing that kind of thing. And I wanted to be one of them, and I became one of them. And I was working in that way, having my own agency, not earning very much. And actually, some of the other private investigators, they mock you, and they're like, oh, you're just happy earning a couple of £100 a week, aren't you? And you think, but yeah, I'm not doing what you do. So then if I get sick, if I get cancer, which I did at one point, I can pray. I can say, God help me, because I've stored up stuff in the bank. I'm not, living off crime. And I work for a lot of the top agencies, Argon, for instance, Hacklight, Kroll, and I got a name as being really, really good. But I was very, very bored, and I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't want to be a PI. I didn't like it. I'd only got into it because I was recruited out of care, and I wanted to be a writer. And I thought, right, I'll get into journalism and become a writer from there, which I did. I ended up my bylines in the Sunday Times. And when I told different people, PIs, like, ex-MI6 officers that I knew what I was going to do, they were quite fond of me. I was young, in my 20s, and they said, please don't do that, journalists can't be trusted. Now, I'd already been turned over by Phil Hall of the News of the World, called Ian Brady's daughter, so I was well aware of all that. And then, of course, we became lovers after, and he was still going out with Tina Weaver, who then became the editor of the Sunday Mirror. That's how I know that phone hacking got into the Sunday Mirror, via John Boyle. And of course, Phil Hall was at the helm of the News of the World, and Tina Weaver's at the helm of the Sunday Mirror, and they were still in contact with each other. The Sunday Mirror are up to their balls in phone hacking, but if they only make the connection of John Boyle, then they're laughing, but they don't. And nobody listens to me because Graham Johnson has pushed himself forward as the whistleblower, whereas I was the one who risked everything and whistle blew. I was the insider. He wasn't an insider. He didn't work for the press for very long. I was the insider. But instead, he's made out, even though I went to dinner with him many times, the last 2 times were in the summer, with James Hanning and Bruce Goodison, and he said that I threatened and abused him in court, which has been repeated around the world. And I spoke to James Hanning about it. He said, I don't know why he said that. I mean, quite. Why would you say that? It's to make me look bad. And if you then make me look bad, you can throw me at the Daily Mail. And that's what he's trying to do. He told me years and years ago, do you know what, when he got drunk, made a pass at me as well, said that our target is the Daily Mail. We're going to destroy them. Hugh Grant wants to destroy the Daily Mail, which meant he did as well. So even though he doesn't have much power. So this is what they wanted to do. I was quite alarmed about that. And so I contacted the Daily Mail at the time because I thought, this is a bit alarming. They want to make out the Mail are like phone hackers or some kind of, well, they certainly are making out their phone hackers. And then there's all this guff that they bugged during Lawrence's Cafe and all this kind of thing. Now, I knew the Daily Mail for a long, long time, and they were completely different to the tabloids, completely, utterly different. They did nothing that the tabloids did. And since it was, I suppose, me that brought in the phone hacking, I brought in John Boyle. Now, this is left out in any of the recounting of the stories, okay? And for some reason, everybody keeps quiet about it. I would say Graham Johnson keeps quiet about it because he doesn't want to let me have any relevance. He wants to diminish me. He wants me to be unimportant, yet he wants to paint me really black so he can throw me at the Daily Mail. This is his strategy. It's not going to work. because I'm out there as a Sunday Times best-selling author. I'm out there with my bylines in the Sunday Times. How is it going to rock and roll? Never mind. He's made a good effort at it. It's really, really good. And even this, you threatened and abused me. Well, why are you busy taking me out to dinner? Why are you spooning my pudding? Yes, that's on camera, I'm afraid. I filmed it. You know, when I went out for half an hour and y'all were worried where I was getting a new tape putting in and ringing the people who were telling me to film it. So that's what I was doing. You were worried. Why are you gone so long? Oh, I'm just fixing my camera at a better angle. You're all so silly. I'm a private investigator for real. Anyway, so he actually spooned my pudding, which is on the tape. So you threatened and abused me. Well, do you always go and act lovey-dovey to people that have threatened and abused you? So interesting. Anyway, moving on to what happened. It was I that brought in the phone hacking inadvertently. I had no idea. This is totally left out of Nick Davies' book. Now you have to wonder why it's left out. I think it's left out because of the MI6 involvement. Now, there was a company, I had an advert in the Yellow Pages back in the day, and I used my second name, Joanna. So that was there, ex-military personnel, surveillance. One day I got a call from a company called Company X. It was run by ex-MI6 officer Michael Oatley. Now, this is in the mid-90s, and they asked me to do a surveillance. So I used some of my army boys, did a surveillance. It was around Buckingham Palace, bizarrely. It was a filmmaker, and I think the filmmaker was called Julian Askin. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, and I have records of them paying me. So the guy I worked for was a South African called Andrew. We did the surveillance, and the guy I was doing the surveillance with, Martin Nymark, said, they're the spooks, they're MI6. And I said, oh, come on. Of course they're not. Even though, I'd worked for plenty of agencies that were MI6. I just didn't think this lot were. They were along Buckingham Gate, same as Christopher Steele's company, so I should have, I guess, been more aware. But I actually believe that they were a computer company. So I went back to talk about how we tracked this guy down. So basically the surveillance didn't work because he was surveillance aware. Now, what happened, I had the office who he was working for, a film company, I had their phone number, and I was waiting for Greg Miskiw to finish one evening to go for a drink with him. So I was at the News of the World offices, and I suddenly had the inspiration to ring the film company. Now, it was 9 o'clock at night, and I sort of argued with myself. Now, why would I ring them? There'd be nobody there. But I again got that push, ring them now. So I rang the number, and the cleaner answered. So it was very easy then for me to find out where the South African filmmaker was actually staying. He was staying with one of the staff members. So the cleaner told me this, and then it was an easy job from there on in to track that particular person. So I solved the job for them where 6 other agencies hadn't been able to. They asked me how. I said it was the intuition. I had that really strongly. It's what made me a good private investigator. It's what I was good at. It was my speciality. Just saying that for Sean Moss of the BBC. My speciality was not knowing how to find out how to do an investigation, but sleeping on it, and then I would, be aware in the morning. So I was very much an intuitive worker when it came to investigations, and it worked for me, and I was pleased and proud that it did. I was proud of myself. I was proud of who I was. I was unique, and so I went along and told all this to Company X, which I at that point thought was CIEX Limited, and then somebody, in fact it was Phil Campbell Smith, who said, "Oh, they're the spooks, didn't you know? And do you know what CIX means?" I said, "No." And he said, "CIE stands for company, and the X is company X." And but in the board meeting with them, I explained how I got the result because they were very curious. I said it was my intuition. That's how I work. And they said, "You work for the News of the World, don't you?" I said, "Yes." I think at that point I should have said, "Well, how do you know?" But I know when these guys hire people, they check them out thoroughly. So I didn't say why, how. And then they started talking about the News of the World. They said the News of the World are out of control. The News of the World are using serving SAS guys to spy on royalty. And I laughed. And there was a guy sitting opposite me. These are all ex-anti-terrorists, ex-this, ex-that, really high-powered police at a top level. And one of them said, "Why do you find that amusing?" Is funny, obviously, but I shut up straight away. I can't remember much of that, the rest of that meeting, which is quite spooky. But I spoke to Greg Miskew about it. I can't recall what happened. I spoke to him about it, and he rather made it all about me. But it wasn't about me. It was about him. It was about them. I didn't tell him about what they'd asked me about the SAS, just because I thought, well, no. I was very upset about what the News of the World were doing when I found out. I felt that they were prurient. I felt that they were attacking people. I felt that they went after people. And I felt that their job wasn't to be journo coppers. I felt their job was to report the news. So I didn't agree with the whole setup of the News of the World. I was finding out what Mazza Mahmood was doing. What they didn't add in the Amazon documentary was that he was targeting Pakistanis. And I didn't like that either. And I said to him, "Why do you always investigate Pakistanis, if you can call it that?" And he said, "But don't you think it's easier for me to move amongst Pakistanis?" He said, "Look at me." And I thought, but hang on, we're supposed to be journalists. It's reporting the news. You're not supposed to be coppers. So I didn't like the way they operated. I didn't agree with it at all. And so I felt quite comfortable with grassing them up to this agency, whatever they wanted. But the next thing, John Boyle started. Now, John Boyle, I know, works for the XMI6 agencies, and I've been told he worked for CIX Limited. And he started, I had worked for him years and years ago, but only for a short period of time. And we had a sexual relationship. He's incredibly good looking. He looks like a young Dirk Bogarde. Of course, now he's older, but back in the day, he was very middle class, very Dirk Bogarde lookalike. He even sounded like Dirk Bogarde. And so I liked him immediately. So we started, when I was 19, a relationship that went on over a period of decades, really. We'd meet up, I suppose, twice a year, 3 times a year, something like that. So he started encircling me, and I thought it was odd because we went out to dinner, he came back to my house, and he started asking for my mobile number. Now, I thought it was odd because he had my landline, which is more intimate, and also our way would be, yes, we've caught up on gossip, we've seen each other, see you again in another 4 or 5 months. So I thought it was really weird that he wanted my mobile number. And I remember my stomach churning at the time. I was laying on the bed, my stomach started churning. And I remember thinking, was it something to do with that company? I gave him my mobile number. The next day I rang my mobile company and I asked for security on it. I thought he would get maybe a printout of my bill. I asked for my bill not to be itemized. I felt pretty bad, but I thought, well, hang on, I don't like working for these clowns anyway. I want to be a writer, I want to be a journalist, so I thought, well, it doesn't matter. The next thing, Greg, Greg kind of pushed me into having, I thought it was a heart attack, but it was a panic attack. But I had this, what I thought was a heart attack, and I got rushed to hospital. And then Greg appeared, and he started bulldozing me to do work. He Literally, I was laying there in the hospital strapped up with a heart monitor, and he said, I want you to find out where the Yorkshire Ripper's wife is. I mean, you don't do that. I thought, I can't handle him anymore. And because I'm a bully victim and I don't have boundaries, and I'm a bit of a soft egg, I didn't know what to do. I was really upset he was there in the hospital. He shouldn't have been allowed to be there. You know, he came right in and pulled back the screens and sat on my bed. Why was that allowed? Who told him where I was? I think it's my mother, actually. And it changed the course of things. It changed the course of the British newspapers. Now, isn't it odd that that happened, and yet it's not in Nick Davies' book? He changed my name in his book. John Boyle is mentioned, but he could be the bin man. It's funny. John Boyle has been written out of history. I've certainly been diminished massively. Whenever the story is told, I'm diminished. Now, it's not that I want to puff myself up. It's not a great thing to be the person that brought in the phone hacking, but you have to look at, I'm left out of the story because they want John left out of the story, yeah? And this is how Prince Harry doesn't understand how it all went on. This is how he's not fighting well in court, because it's left out. Again, hacked off, leave out John Boyle. Why? I mean, you know, they've got their newspapers, they just leave him out. Yet he was the one who brought in phone hacking. Glenn Mulcair was merely his little footballer office boy who didn't know any better about anything. And the police are very angry about this. They went to John Boyle's estate and they said to him, you taught that kid all that stuff. He's not a kid, he's 45 years of age, but he's got a mind like a kid. And he was basically, Greg got hold of him, literally got hold of him. I think he's totally an innocent person in all of this. I really absolutely do. Because he's a sportsman, he's a footballer. He's not able to think clearly about what he was told to do by these people that know better. So anyway, that day, Greg sat me on the side of the bed, and I was terrified. I was terrified of my heart, and I was really scared. I thought, I'm going to die here, and this man's going to push me into, like, dying. Again, people don't understand that. They're like, if they were brought up in a normal way, that why don't you just tell them to fuck off? Love doesn't ring true. Why didn't you just walk away? Well, if you're a bully victim, every day of your life, you do what other people tell you to do. I'm different now. Now I'd throw a drink over his face, but then, back then. So I sat there. I didn't know what to do. I thought my heart was going to give out. The hospital had told me it was a panic attack. I didn't believe them. Greg thought it was funny, took me to the pub. I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to work for you. And I had been in the same position with Detective Agency Nationwide, where Stuart Withers, I said, I want to leave. I want to be a writer. And he said, you try and leave, I'm going to break both your legs. And it was only, the reason why I'm valuable is that kind of gift I had with which is my specialty. Graham Johnson, again, is trying to wipe that out as if it doesn't exist. Like, oh, I'm a data thief, that's why I'm valuable. I was never any good at doing anything remotely like that. My forte was human, as it's called. Nick Davis is intelligent enough to put that in the back of his book. So what I would do, I would think about the person, and then I would kind of start reading their energy, and then I'd pick up the phone to them, and as soon as they'd start speaking to me, I would read that energy and I would know what to say to get them to open up. But first you had to know what person to go to that had that information, and I was very good at that. Again, I would sleep on, I wouldn't know, and then I would sleep on it, and then I'd wake up, and the first thing in the morning I would know who to go to, and I'd write it down. So this was my forte, and nationwide, Barry and Stuart valued me for it. I was really good at solving any of the really difficult cases. And this is what I was good at doing for Greg. He's got a short memory about that. He's dead now, but he certainly had a short memory about that. So I sat there with him in the pub and said, I don't want to work for you. He more or less started crying. He said, it's not as if the paper can't go without you, but we really need you. And then he put his head in his hands, and I thought, I'm going to have to help him somehow. And I said, I know a guy that can do investigations work. That way you don't have to give me any investigations work. You can keep me free for this human, where they wanted to find out about people. There were people involved in a story, who to go to find out the information, what to say to get them to crack open. That is what I want to do, and that is what I do all the way along my line. And that is what I did for the Daily Mail. Again, Graham Johnson's banging the drum of, you're not special, you're not special, you're not special. And then in the middle of, she's a bad, but she threatened me and I'm just a little girl. And all that guff. He's doing really well because he's got good contacts in the media. You've got to give it to him. But I think with these up and coming trials that things might well break open. Again, not because of me, but because of Gavin Burrows and all the stuff around him. But I think that things are going to be broken open. Gavin is quite a fighter, and he's quite angry about everything that's happened. I'm not a fighter. I'm not great at fighting. I'm ineffectual. I'll come on YouTube and, as Private Eye called it, have a rant. I'm not an effectual fighter, whereas he is, and he's very moneyed up. So he's going to break this open, and then once it's broken open, people are revealed as who and what they are, then I will be exonerated too. And so I'm happy about that. So anyway, I said I wanted just to be free to do human, because that is what it's my speciality. I was good at it. Made me feel good. They called me a genius. Of course I'm going to like it. Of course I'm not going to want to do what a 10-bob PI does. So I said, I know this guy called John Boyle. He can do all your investigations work. Now, I woke up the next morning and felt really, really bad about that. And I thought, my heart felt better. And I thought, hang on, in some kind of way, what if John can do what I do? Now, I know he can't. He very much can't. But it was this thought that nagged at me, and the thought that somehow he might destroy my position. And I was very much 3/4 of the way into journalism at that point. I was specialising in the Real IRA. I was getting very close to them. I eventually moved out to Belfast, and I was happy about the way things were going journalistically. And I certainly wasn't working with Mazza Mahmood. Now, I had done about 3 jobs with him, and he nearly got me killed, and so I decided I didn't want to work with him. He then invited me out to this hotel, and I took that as he wanted to have a relationship with me, and I turned him down. And then after that, I didn't hear from him again, and that was in I think that was in 2002 perhaps. Yeah, I'm pretty sure early 2000s. So indeed, I stopped working for the News of the World in the early 2000s. So this had gone on, and John Boyle, yeah, I had this thought that, you know, I shouldn't bring John Boyle in. It seemed like a bad idea. Of course, that was my instinct kicking in. I went over to email my aunt, who's a nun, interestingly, and I'd been interacting with her. I emailed, and for some reason, I said about this, what happened, and about John Boyle, and she sent back the email, "You really must introduce John Boyle to the News of the World, or you'll never be a writer." Now, that's quite a strong statement, and I remember, bizarrely, that I had Greg Miskey had called me, and he said, "Oh, today's the day you introduced me to John." And because I changed my mind, and I could hear Terania Taris in the background, they were having a relationship. I could tell that she wanted me out. It was obvious. And I thought, oh, is this your plan as well? You two want this guy, just tell me to piss off because of Terania. And of course, Phil Hall didn't like me either. And so I was very, very angry. And I felt the anger throb through me, and I felt the enjoyment in he hadn't made a note of John's second name. And he said to me, Burl, John Burl. And I said, yeah, I've decided not to introduce you now. And I could feel his anger. His anger came at me really strong. It's like a snake. And I remember feeling pleased with myself and thinking, Burl, you haven't written it down, have you? And he's not even on the internet anyway. And I pictured him Googling away. And he said to me, it was so pathetic, "How do you spell Burl?" And because he'd said it, Burl, I said, Burle. Why? Why do you want to know? Like pretending that I didn't realise he just wanted to go straight to it. Why do you want to know? And he goes, oh, no reason. Anyway, I put the phone down and I thought, you fucking can't. And it was then I walked over to the computer, and I had obviously told my aunt, who's a nun, the Daughters of St. Paul, that about the whole issue, bizarrely. And she had then made this almost command to me, you must introduce him to John Boyle. And I remember, and it's so weird, that I went straight, because the computer was on my desk, and I went straight over to my bed, picked up the phone and rang Miss Q and said, I will introduce you to John Boyle. And he went, really? And he said really in such a way that was so annoying. It was so greasy and boyish. And, you know, I knew he was trying to blag me. I knew he wanted me out. I knew Terania had her hand up his back and meant me real bad. And I thought, I mean, she'd even, apparently, Phil Hall had said, I want you to train Terania Taris. You can be my Charlie's Angels. And I remember thinking, don't fuck with me. You want me to train her to be me so you can tell me to fuck off. You know, I actually said to him, I can't train her to have my mind. And I wasn't being mean about that. Anyway, so what happened with Boyle? Unbelievably, I said that. It's unbelievable that I went back over to the front and literally did what my aunt commanded me to do. Now, I'd been a part of the Daughters of St. Paul. I'd been inculcated and I joined the convent in Boston. But just to do that, it overrode my will. I said, I will introduce you to John Boyle. And he, really? And I really hated him. And I felt a part of me come forward that really hated him, that thought, you fucking turd, I really don't want to tell you this. But another part that had come in that just overrode it and said, yes, I'll set up a meeting tonight. And that's how it was very, you know, as one PI introducing your client, your only, you know, main client to another PI that you felt wary of. It just doesn't happen. And it really overrode my will. Anyway, I rang Boyle. Boyle was excited. He came to pick me up that night, that very night. Both of them wanted to meet each other. They were like dogs, straining at the bit. And he came to meet me in his Land Rover. He's very well to do. He had a cravat on. We had set up to meet. I think it was a restaurant in Piccadilly. Maybe not the Wolsey. Maybe another one. I'm not sure, but something like the Wolsey in that area. And we met there, and it was weird. I remember going outside halfway through, and I think that was the time that John said about the phone hacking, because Greg came out. He had a really expensive Burberry raincoat, and he put it around my shoulders and said, "Are you cold? Let's get you a cab." And he looked as if he was the cat that got the cream. And I remember registering it, and I got in the cab with his Burberry on. I never gave that Burberry back. And I remember thinking, I'm finished. I'm just over. I'm finished. And I was. And it's weird that I played a part in my own demise. Anyway, that was the birth of phone hacking. What happened, John, my lover, hacked my mobile. He found out who else I was working for, the Sunday Mirror, and he approached them. So it was at the same time the News of the World got the phone hacking that the Sunday Mirror got the phone hacking. Now, I believe at the time Tina Weaver was there. Tina pushed me out as soon as she arrived. Well, you don't need a PI when you're hacking everybody's phone. So John worked for the Sunday Mirror and the News of the World. He tried to get in the Daily Mail, but they didn't want him. Now, I know certain people don't agree with this, such as James Hanning, but I'm afraid it's true. They didn't want crime. The only way, I'll say this, I'll say it again, phone hacking wasn't rife on Fleet Street. It was John Boyle bringing it in, and he did it for years. It was only much later that when they learned how to do it, that the little hacks on these two newspapers started to do it themselves. So what happened, John was working for, he was probably charging about £1,000 per person that he hacked, and I was dropped. Yep, you can work for people for years and years and then get dropped in Fleet Street. My phone didn't ring, and I went off to Belfast then to become a journalist. Literally, didn't work after that. Sorry, just take a few minutes to think about how he was my boyfriend. It's weird, isn't it? Someone can see that you're not that wealthy, you're in a rented flat, and then they're in a big estate, and they can just like fuck you over and take you and call it business. It's actually disgusting. But he slipped out. Nobody mentions his name at all. He's never suffered over the whole thing. John Boyle didn't like the fact he didn't get on with John. Now, I knew they wouldn't get on. They're a different class, and he thought John was greedy, swanky. John ridiculously, but then this is how I think it was a setup. Greg was allowed to speak to John's office boy, Glenn Mulcair. Now, that never happens. I think it was a setup by Company X. This is what they do. They do big setups. I believe it was to introduce criminality to Fleet Street and bring it down, or certainly bring it down as regards investigating. It was out of control, and they wanted to smash it. So they smashed it by bringing in this crime and then pulling the plug on it. I think I was very instrumental in the whole thing, because what happened, Greg didn't like the fact that John was working for the Sunday Mirror. By that time, Phil Hoare had left. Phil Hoare had said yes to John Boyle, yes to phone hacking. He had also run Mazza, again, a person that's never mentioned. He's the one who ruined my life. Anyway, so with the Brady story, and also was my ex-lover. and if you can call it that. Anyway, they didn't like the fact that John was working for the Sunday Mirror, so they then got their they decided to cut John off. When they cut him off, now John has told me that they owed him $250,000. That's 250 grand. So you can imagine, John is not the sort of a man that would work for months and months and not be paid. So how much was he on? I mean, if he was owed $250,000, 250 grand, and they said, nah, mate, we're not going to pay your last invoice. Well, that wasn't an invoice for a year. John wouldn't let that happen. John wouldn't let even 30 days go by and not have his pay. So you can think about how much money that was, how much he was getting a year. And he'd worked for them for years before Greg had decided, I don't like this. And I don't know whether it was Andy Coulson or Greg Miskew, but one of them, or perhaps Phil Hall, one of them came up with a really stupid idea, which is what caused everyone to go to prison, all of them to go to prison, and the newspaper to fold. He came up with the idea, I know, let's screw John Boyle. Let's screw him. Let's not pay him the last month's pay, 250 grand, and let's nick his office boy, Glenn Mulcair. Let's suck his office boy in, say the office boy will give you 100 grand a year, mate, because that way they get it cheap. And let John stay with Tina Weaver. So this is what they did. Now this went on. I came back from Belfast pregnant, 2002, and I met up with Greg. We had dinner, and I said, Greg, I need an income. I need journalistic work. Where's it gone? Who's doing the think pieces? He said, well, we don't have to think anymore. We've gone all high tech. What he meant was they listen into everybody's answer messages. He didn't want to tell me what it was. I said, what's high tech? And he goes, oh, phones. We can tell where people are. That's what I mean. And I sat there and I thought, hang on, I've been in the business, private investigations industry since I was 16. Now, I literally dotted around all the agencies in London, all the powerful ones, because I could, because I was one of the only women in the business. I was young, blonde, good looking. They always wanted a young blonde, even if it was just to go on the arm of one of the ex-spooks. But I was good. Again, Graham Johnson has rewritten my past. He told Tina Brown that I used to bang the phones in London's seedier agencies. Well, no, bitch. I used to go out doing surveillance, risking my life. I worked with ex-MI6 officers. I worked with ex-CID officers. I was trained by them. I did far, far more than that. But this is how this guy's done. I don't know. I must really threaten him. He must look at me and think, God, I really have to diminish her. It's all about money at the end of the day. But I know he's getting off on it, because when he came to the Sunday Mirror, he found me, and everybody was coming to me when they couldn't stand up a story. He really didn't like it. It affected him like a slap on the willy. And he is now just dying to get his own back on me. And indeed, but do you know what, Graham? You will never be me. I'll always be a better investigator. I've always got that extra edge, okay? My speciality will always be that extra edge, no matter how much you try and smear me. Do you understand? I'll always be me. I'll always be how I am. And I'll die being me. Do you understand? So what you put out there is just guff. And it's obvious. And it will be revealed. Do you understand? Anyway, going back to the story of Boyle. So there was the News of the World rocking and rolling with Mulcair. Now I sat there over my spaghetti in the open air with Greg Miskew, and I thought, who is this person? Because I'd literally been in the industry, so I knew all about the industry, and I knew what the powerful men of the industry thought about this one and that one and working for the press and doing illegal things. And if they were going to do something illegal, it was all going to be hush, 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 hush. And it's very much an industry for upper middle class men. Upper middle class men do it the best. Why? Because they've got contacts, and that's how they have their power. They're not busy hacking and doing seedy, dirty little things. They're running with their connections. Yes, they do a lot of undercover work and surveillance, which I was doing a lot of for them, but they're not seedy in any way, shape, or form. Sorry to disappoint you, Graham. Anyway, so going back to John, the spaghetti. Sorry, going back to Greg Miscue, the spaghetti. I thought, who the fuck are you using doing phone stuff for you? Firstly, it's illegal. Secondly, you're the press. Every PI out there knows it's dangerous to work for the press. So who is the muppet you've got who's doing this? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wait to get home to get on the phone. Now, there was a guy called Kador Pendry who had done this kind of thing years and years ago. And he was in trouble over it. He was bugging people and listening to phones and putting in bugs at literally the telephone exchange, which is what Graham Johnson has said that Gavin Burrows has done. So hilarious. Anyway, back to the story. So Kador Pendry had been exposed, obviously, I think by World in Action. So there's nobody in the industry since then that's done that kind of thing. So anyway, went home and I thought, I need to find out who this is. I mean, what the fuck? Who is it that's got such a long neck to do illegal things for the press in this way? Has Kador Pendry come to life again? And the first person I rang, bizarrely, was John. I hadn't spoken to ages, and the first thing I said was, John, are you still working for the News of the World? Surely you're not doing loads of illegal telephone stuff, are you? And he went, I haven't worked for them now for years and years. And I went, oh, well, someone is, and they're doing loads of illegal phone stuff. Do you know what the fuck's going on? And over dinner, Greg had been talking to somebody non-stop and calling them Glyn. And I recognised, because back in the day, he would ring me from sun up to sundown. He would be on the phone to me or using my bleep, Christine this, Christine, how do I do this story? How do I stand up that story? And he was on the phone to this man. I thought, that's your PI. And I said to John, Glyn is his PI. And he went, you're kidding me? I said, no, why? And he said, they are so fucked. And literally, that man is so well connected to the spooks and the cops. He tore down the News of the World. Now, loads of people have been putting their hands up and saying it was them. No, it was John Boyle that destroyed because he was shit on. Nobody shits on him. He's been, actually, there were other men that are absolutely terrified of him. I'm not scared of him. I don't know why. Probably because I'm right at the bottom. I suppose you could send somebody round to duff me up. Join the queue of people wanting to duff me up. So, I don't know. I have weird feelings towards John because obviously we were intimate. I feel weird. I've ended up how I've ended up because of him. And he was supposedly my friend and lover. It feels weird. Anyway, I just wanted to sort of just talk about that today. I think I'll end it there because I have to go somewhere. And yeah, things are the way they are. Was it Company X that brought that in, that told Boyle to bring them criminality, to introduce Miscue to his office boy, that they join up together? Was it orchestrated? Maybe, because they were very angry with the News of the World, those guys around that table, and they are people that fuck around. And this is how they operate. I mean, I've worked for the ex-spooks, and this is how they operate. They do lots of elaborate games to get their result, and it's quite fun, actually. In fact, they are the best people to work for. Literally, there's one guy I know, and when I go in his office, I haven't been for many years because of all this, that the files on his desk make me salivate because they are all dirt grade spying, which is humid, which is finding out from people's minds, which is my speciality and which I really, I love doing it. I really like doing it because it's a bit spooky in a way. I mean, I have to use my gift and I'm good. And to get a result from that is like confirmation of having that extra part. And so it makes me feel $1 million, actually, $1 million. It was interesting after that period of time that I noticed it didn't work for me for a long, long period, and I didn't have it in my own life, and so I made mistakes, made bad choices. Um, yeah, that's pretty bad. I'm getting it back now, but yeah, so it's a strange world. Powerful worlds are strange worlds because they have awareness of other things that we the peasants have awareness of, but we think, nah, that's not real. Yeah, that doesn't go on. Life is just fish fingers and chips and Tesco and all that kind of stuff. And so it's easily when you tell stories like this one to get dismissed. And, I think that's what's going on with the retelling of the story, that I get dismissed. And so Boyle isn't brought up because I think they don't want CIX brought up. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me. Not at all. Doesn't matter. Not anymore. All right. So I'm just not putting up with being diminished or accused of doing things that some tin pot creature did that I would never do. Really makes my blood boil, actually. I've done reversal magic on it, so I'm not a victim, I'm not a soft egg, I'm not there for people to act on it. If anybody is falsely accusing me, if anybody is trying to think that, I'm an easy target for a pinata, I'm not. I know who these people are. I've done energy reversals. Anybody attacking me, it will just bounce off like a mirror. And yeah, not a good idea. I'll end it there. Thanks for listening.